What's going on, everybody? I am back to break down the 6-game NBA DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Excited to get into the breakdown, giving you guys the top place to get in that green cash line. As always, before we do, guys, quick reminder that the sponsor of the program is Parlay Play. If you're not familiar with Parlay Play, check them out. Head on over here. It's a player props format. They offer NFL, NBA, NHL, boxing, all that fun stuff, and we've been doing a Parlay Play bankroll challenge. If you haven't been tuning into the live streams, I will be giving out those picks for the Parlay Play bankroll challenge as well. Started out with $10, trying to increase that to as much money as we possibly can before the end of the year. Sign up today using that promo code KJK003 or the link down below in the description. You'll get an instant match deposit up to $50. You'll also get a risk-free $10 to play, which is what we started this challenge with when you sign up today using my promo code. So check them out, guys. And if you're getting very, very serious about NBA DFS, really playing every night and really trying to become a better and profitable player, I would highly recommend my NBA DFS premium package. You can head over here to patreon.com/KJK_DFS. Once again, link below in the description. You get access to my premium NBA projections, NBA data sheet, player stats, team play context, stats, core plays, all that fun stuff. So check that out, guys. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start getting into this breakdown. Don't forget to stay tuned at the end of the video for my lock of the night. So, first game on the slate, we have Oklahoma City taking on the Washington Wizards. As far as this game comes in right now with a total of a 217 over/under, 9.5 point spread in favor of the Washington Wizards. So, not exactly expected to be the closest game, which is no surprise. The Oklahoma City Thunder have really, really struggled. And for that reason, I think I might want to limit my exposure here a little bit. You have Kyle Kuzma, Bradley Beal, both playing at very high levels, specifically Kyle Kuzma for his price tag and his expected role. I mean, he's just been absolutely phenomenal as of late. It's not as if the Oklahoma City really provide much of a problem as far as resistance either. They are just really not the greatest defensively, so I'm not too worried about that. The problem I am worried about, like I said, is the blowout. His price tag continues to climb. Is he going to be able to keep up this production? I'm not too sure that he is. And for that reason, I'm not too sure that I'm going to be getting too much exposure to this game overall. Like looking at my sheets as far as the plays that I'm really, really high on from this Washington-Oklahoma City game so far on this slate tonight. I would say the biggest guy, and this is with a grain of salt, would be Jeremiah Robinson-Earl on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Maybe a Lou Dort as well at 5'2". Lou Dort actually looks like a pretty phenomenal play here, I'm not going to lie. He would be the one guy on DraftKings specifically where he could really, really surpass his price tag here at a 5'2" price tag. Consistently playing up there near 30 minutes in close games. Produces at a pretty high rate, putting up 0.83 DK points per minute. And if he's able to stay in this game, in a close game, I do think that this is a price tag that he could certainly pay off tonight alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I think I have a lot more interest on the Oklahoma City side of this game. If this game does stay close, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 7'6", Josh Giddey, 6'9". Those three guys, they're really the three main high usage guys. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been a really big letdown, but he's seen his price tag fall all the way down to 7'6". He's looking really friendly on my sheet. And then Josh Giddey at 6'9". Point guard responsibilities, he has a lot of upside, 6'9". Still not quite high enough of a price tag for him. Would certainly be willing to get some exposure to him. Montrezl Harrell's expected to return in this game, so that's certainly going to take a big hit to Mr. Daniel Gafford, so he becomes a non-factor for me. Spencer Dinwiddie being back at 6K is going to obviously dim the usage a little bit for a Kyle Kuzma, a Bradley Beal. So for that reason, the Washington Wizards side, I just not quite as interested in. Phoenix taking on Toronto. This could be a pretty interesting game to target. Both sides have very solidified rotations, and a game that's actually expected to stay close for both sides. A 223.5 over/under with a 4.5 point spread in favor of the Phoenix Suns. So that is fantastic for our fantasy lineups. Looking at both sides, like I said, both sides very solidified rotations. Devin Booker, Chris Paul are going to be your pay-up options on the Phoenix Suns side. They have been involved in a lot of blowouts as of late. In a game that can finally stay close, we could finally see Devin Booker reach his ceiling at 8'6", so I certainly have the most interest in targeting him that I have in quite some time. Same can be said for Chris Paul at 7'7". And pretty much everyone in this game is a great fantasy point producer. Pulling up at both teams here as far as Phoenix and Toronto on my sheets on the screen. Let's see, Phoenix, Toronto, 4 fantasy points here. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. Devin Booker putting up 1.21 DK points per minute. Great. Chris Paul putting up 1.2. Great. DeAndre Ayton putting up 1.18. So you get the point. All the main pieces on both sides play a lot of minutes, produce at a very high rate. And for that reason, I think it does definitely make sense to be getting some exposure to both sides of this game. DeAndre Ayton at 7'2" could be a phenomenal play here with plenty of upside. So I certainly would be willing to go to him. And overall, I mean, These guys are just going to grade out way better than they have for quite some time now that they're finally in a game that's expected to stay close. That's a big deal. Both sides very solidified rotations. Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent Jr. are both listed as questionable in this one. That is some very big news. If for some reason one or both of these guys are out, going to be a big bump up in usage to the rest of the starters. So certainly keep your eyes on that. Steve Mikhailiuk would have more minutes if there's no Gary Trent, but we would be taking a much harder look to who we're already taking a look to. OG Anunoby at 6'3". He's priced very friendly. I'm going to have interest in him regardless. Guy goes out there and plays mid-30s minutes every single game at a 6'3" price tag. That's just too cheap for him. So I like OG Anunoby. And then the pay-up options would become even better options. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. If those guys are all rolled out, would become just usage animals. And we'd want to be getting plenty of exposure to them. So certainly keep your eyes on that injury news. But overall, this game's looking really good. Lastly, I'll say Jay Crowder's looking very good at his price tag on both websites. He's 3.9 on DraftKings over here. He's not always the best fantasy point per minute producer, but the fact of the matter is he's playing a solid amount of minutes. He can get hot, and 3.9 is just too cheap for a guy that's playing that amount of minutes. So I do think that he is a pretty intriguing play here. You can make an argument for a lot of guys on the Sun side, actually, in my projections. I think their upside is somewhat limited, but they're getting a decent amount of minutes. Landry Shamet, if he returns, Cameron Payne, and Mr. Jay Crowder, who we just discussed. So next game on the slate, Detroit taking on Chicago. This game right now comes in with a total of a 221 over-under, 14-point spread in favor of the Chicago Bulls, though. So not exactly expected to stay all that close, and for that reason, I would be approaching this game with a little bit of caution. The Detroit Pistons are on a back-to-back. Levine, Vucevic, DeRozan, and Lonzo Ball. I really think that probably only one of these guys or two of these guys gets there at this game. I would anticipate that it really doesn't stay close. And for that reason, I would be wanting to target, two of these guys in my builds. It's kind of a little bit unpredictable, similar to some other teams we've talked about with a lot of really just solid overall players like the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, you never necessarily know who's going to have the big game. You can certainly go ahead and, if you're a premium content member of mine, go over to the defensive half court and putbacks tool and be looking at, which teams are better at defending around the rim, which teams are better at defending the three as far as the offensive shooting accuracy and defensive shooting accuracy sheet as well. That's kind of how I would grade out these top plays on the slate tonight. Detroit, Chicago. Detroit, 26th overall in points per play rank. They're 16th in offensive rebounding percentage allowed, 18th in half-court percentage of plays rank. So, nothing really standing out to me too much here from a first-glance aspect. I could dig into the more detailed sheets. But overall, like I said, I would just be limiting my exposure on that side. If the game stays close, it's pretty simple. It's Cade Cunningham, it's Saddiq Bey, it's Hamidou Diallo. These three guys, really the top three guys. And Cade Cunningham would be my number one option after putting up 50 DraftKings points last night. Saddiq Bey, 41. Hamidou Diallo put up 30. So, once again, it's really going to be mainly Cade Cunningham for me on the Detroit side of things. You could be taking a look to a Trey Lyles, who's still getting a decent amount of minutes here at a 4.9 price tag. He's put up 42 and 31 DraftKings points the last couple times out. So, I don't hate that play, especially if it turns into a blowout. Maybe he gets some more run. But overall, a game that I'm not too interested in compared to some of these other games that we talked about, like a Phoenix-Toronto, and some other games we're going to get to here. Golden State Warriors taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. This game comes in with a 218.5 over-under with a 2-point spread in favor of the Golden State Warriors. Really not going to be the best fantasy point environment, to be honest with you. We're going to talk about that Minnesota or New Orleans game, but there's some other games on the slate that just stand out to me. This one not really being one. When you're looking at the total and everything, and both sides, the Golden State Warriors are the number one defense in the league. We have Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant, all being rolled in now. There is no Draymond Green, which is going to be a bump up to a Jaren Jackson Jr. and the big men down low because, Draymond Green's a phenomenal defender, so you take him out. Otto Porter, Bielitsa, Juan Toscano Anderson, the minutes will probably be spread out between those three, so I'm not getting too interested. Steven Adams is the big piece of news. If he is indeed out, obviously we're going to be taking a much harder look to a Jaren Jackson Jr. or Brandon Clark once again on this slate tonight. Both those guys were pretty decent plays. We saw Brandon Clark play very limited minutes with Tillman and some of these other guys being back, though, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. John Carter, Zaire Williams, and Xavier Tillman all kind of digging into his minutes. He was a guy that I was really high on, but they clearly showed they're not really trying to run him out for an extended amount of minutes, so I would not exactly be too excited to get too much exposure to Brandon Clark tonight. It would mainly be the big three of Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, and John Morant, with Dylan Brooks being out. If Steven Adams out as well, obviously a bigger bump to Jaren Jackson Jr. So those three guys would really be the ones I'm looking to target. On the Golden State Warriors side, we do have Klay Thompson back at 6K. That's certainly going to affect other guys in the rotation at 6K. I still don't think he's going to be getting the allotment of minutes that you need for him to really pay off this price tag. So I'm not really getting too interested in Klay Thompson, and I do think that it affects Andrew Wiggins, Otto Porter, these other starters. But we have seen Andrew Wiggins' price tag continue to drop. That is something that's very interesting I'm going to be keeping my eye on. He's only 6'4" now. He might be someone that I'm willing to go price tag hunting on. He certainly has the upside at that price tag. Kyle Anderson played a bunch of minutes in his return last time out, 29 minutes, but the Golden State Warriors are the #1 defense in the league defensively, so I'm just not too interested in targeting them outside of the major studs. John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, those three. If the game stays close, it's going to be because of those three, so naturally I'll have some exposure there, but otherwise not too interested. Stephen Curry at 10.7, I think he's priced up way too much for his upside as of late. Klay Thompson's returning. That should take away some usage for him. This isn't the fastest paced game on the slate. I think there's some other guys that are priced at their same price range, if not cheaper, that I'd much rather go to on this slate tonight. So we'll talk about that. This game, Minnesota taking on the New Orleans Pelicans, is going to be a phenomenal fantasy game. This is one I'm going to want to be getting a lot of exposure to. It's a 226.5 over under 4-point spread in favor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So this game is one you're going to want to be absolutely loving. The Minnesota side, very easy. It's Anthony Edwards, it's D'Angelo Russell, it's Karl-Anthony Towns. All of the usage is flowing through these three guys. All of the upside is through these three guys. All of my exposure will be through these three guys. So they're really the ones you want to be looking to. Phenomenal matchup for all three of them. Huge upside to be had in a game that's expected to really stay close. 226.5 over under. I'm really going to like. Naturally, D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards are my two favorite options at 8K and 7.9 for upside at their price tag. I think they have the same amount of upside as Karl-Anthony Towns, and they're much cheaper. So naturally, I'm going to be getting lots of exposure to them. However, with that being said, Karl-Anthony Towns still grades out. It's a pretty great play for me at his respective price tag, putting up 1.35 DK points per minute. So really want to be getting some exposure here. And running it back on the other side, someone that looks very, very friendly to me is Brandon Ingram at only 8.2 on the New Orleans Pelicans side. Minnesota Timberwolves, really bad defensively as well. Pulling up my defensive half-court and putbacks tool here as far as these two teams. The New Orleans Pelicans grade out as the 24th overall in points per possession rank in the league. And the Minnesota Timberwolves currently grading out as actually a pretty respectable defense in the points per possession rank. But I think that has more so to do with their pace of play because they are 28th overall in offensive rebounding percentage given up as well. Half-court percentage of plays, 28th, and 29th overall in putbacks. So I will say that this is a phenomenal matchup for Mr. Jonas Valanciunas as well. 8.5 for him. Really loose defense. Really giving up a lot of rebounds around the rim. He's playing mid-30s minutes. 8.5. We've continued to see his price tag fall down from being up in the 9K range. So Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Ingram, I love them as run-back options. And then obviously Josh Hart and Devontae Graham as well. So the thing I really like about this game is it's a fast, up-tempo game. We know where all the production is coming on both sides. So I really feel confident about being able to load up on both sides here. Like I said, Devontae Graham, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, and then Karl-Anthony Towns, Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell on the other side. And you can go to some cheaper options also on the Minnesota side. Something that I really want to be taking note of is Mr. Jared Vanderbilt's run as of late. He's playing right around 30 minutes. He's put up 42 and 59 DraftKings points the last two times out. That's really impressive stuff. Do I think he can sustain that? Probably not. And has his price tag come up? Yes. So it's a little bit scary going there, but I mean, you got to kind of take notice of what this guy's been doing. So I think Jared Vanderbilt's a pretty intriguing play on the Minnesota side of things. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was an interesting play last time because there was no Josh Hart. Honestly, he still got limited minutes. With Josh Hart being back, that's going to be a no for me. Malik Beasley with D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards being back, probably more of a dart throw, but yeah, overall, just really want to lock in the key pieces in this game. Denver taking on the LA Clippers. The last game on the slate here, we're going to talk about a 212.5 over-under here. 2.5 point spread in favor of the Denver Nuggets. So we could definitely be targeting a Nikola Jokic at 12K, top fantasy point producer in the league. Anytime that a game is expected to stay close, he is going to be up there for priorities as far as pay-up options. As far as the overall expected production in this game and all that fun stuff for the Denver side, Aaron Gordon looks pretty friendly over here on DraftKings at a 4.9 price tag for the Denver side. So he's actually the first one that I would be looking to. As far as the injury news on the Denver side, Will Barton is listed as out. Michael Porter Jr. is listed as out. So we're going to see Austin Rivers get the start, but I do think that mainly really does benefit Aaron Gordon, who gets his usage cut into by a Will Barton, and obviously Nikola Jokic is going to benefit a lot from that as well. Nikola Jokic is just going to have to go into even more takeover mode on their side of things. But Aaron Gordon, I think, really is going to benefit. You could take a look to a composite off the bench. And surprisingly, Mr. Bones Highland's grading out as a pretty phenomenal play for me as well. At only 3-3, I've got him projected right now to play a decent amount of minutes. And for that reason, he's really grading out as a pretty decent play here. I've got him projected to play in the low 20 minutes, 0.88 DK points per minute at only a 3-3 price tag. With there being no Will Barton, actually a pretty great value here in my projections from a first look aspect. So I like that. JaMychal Green will certainly take a step forward, and Monty Morris at 4-7 also. With there being no Will Barton, I mean, you have to be taking a much harder look too. He should have more assist upside, more scoring upside, all the above with there no Will Barton out there. So I do think that Monty Morris is also a pretty intriguing play, and he grades out as a really good play for me on this slate tonight. As far as anyone else in this game, on the LA Clippers side, they continue to be shorthanded. Reggie Jackson's only 5'8". I continue to want to go back to Reggie Jackson. He just really looks great in projection models. He's been a bit of a letdown, though, but they still don't have Paul George. His usage should continue to be high. His minutes haven't been, though. He's only been playing low 20s, so I'm a little concerned here about going back to Reggie Jackson. I've got him projected for right around 30 minutes. I'm almost wondering if that's too high at this point with him. It's becoming a little bit questionable. Eric Bledsoe, same thing can be said for him. But mixing and blending these LA Clippers guys, Marcus Morris Sr. is certainly the top option on this side. I think it's just a matter of the game staying close for Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, Terrence Mann to all really get an extended amount of run and grade out some pretty good plays here. Amir Coffey and Nicholas Batum coming back, I'm a little concerned about that being the reason that these guys are getting their minutes cut into. Both these guys have played 30-plus minutes the last couple times out, but I kind of think that's just because the LA Clippers were so short-handed that they were running these guys into the ground, so they decided to kind of give them some light minutes, and I tend to think they're going to be back to their normal workload in this game. That's just me kind of speculating, but that makes the most sense to me. So 212.5 over-under, not the fastest game in the world, but Clippers still dealing with some injuries. Amir Coffey specifically playing a lot of minutes, so he's someone that you could certainly be taking a hard look to. He's starting now. And then on the Denver side, we talked about all those options. Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, Monty Morris, even a JaMychal Green possibly now with there being no Will Barton, even though they're not directly correlated for minutes, still the usage could be up a little bit. Don't get me wrong, much more interested in Monty Morris specifically. I really just think takes a big bump up here. So, all right, before I give you guys my lock of the night, we got to review FanDuel, of course, as always. We kind of talk about the overall slate on DraftKings, and then we make sure that we aren't missing any pricing discrepancies over here on FanDuel. We've already talked about the overall concepts of the slate, how I'm feeling, where I'm looking, but I just want to make sure that there aren't any big pricing discrepancies that I want to point out that you could really be targeting over here. Jay Crowder at 4-1, we already talked about him. He's cheap on DraftKings as well, but at 4-1, it's just a really cheap price tag. Grading out is a pretty decent value over here for me for a guy that's going to be playing in the mid to upper 20s, maybe even low 30s in minutes, so I do like him quite a bit. The Toronto-New Orleans game specifically is underpriced over here as well. We talked about Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, 8 and 7-9 over here on FanDuel. Two guys that I'm going to be wanting getting a lot of exposure to on this site specifically. So Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, both going to be great plays. We talked about that in that Minnesota-New Orleans game. They're grading out as great plays over here. Lou Dort at 5'6". We talked about him on the Oklahoma City side of things if you want to go there. D'Angelo Russell's the first guy that really stands out. I mean, he's just too cheap over here on FanDuel at 7'6". That's a big pricing difference as far as I'm concerned. Some might say it's not that big of a difference, but I mean, in the mid 7K range for a guy that's put up 49 and 45 FanDuel points the last two times out, and he gets to take on a New Orleans Pelicans team that's been terrible defensively all season long, I will gladly lock him into my lineups. Aaron Gordon at 5-1, we talked about him. Big bump up in his usage with there being no Will Barton. I think he grades out as a pretty great play over here. Josh Hart at 6'8" in that New Orleans-Minnesota game. I feel like that's just going to be a game I want to get a ton of exposure to. Anthony Edwards as well. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 7K grades out as a decent play over here. He's not quite as cheap as he was before, but if there is no Steven Adams again, he's still a really great play. Golden State's defense is a lot better than the last matchup he had taking on the LA Lakers, I will say, and he could get in some foul trouble. He's notorious for that. So now that he's 7K, it's not quite as easy to be locking him in our lineups, but still grades out as a pretty good play. And yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys we talked about on the DraftKings side of things too. Stacking up those high up-tempo games. I like Karl-Anthony Towns at the center position. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 7'8". We talked about him just being really cheap across the industry, so I would certainly be willing to take some risks on him. And the New Orleans Pelicans the Phoenix-Toronto game as well. I think it's really interesting. Gary Trent's only 5'2". If there's no Scotty Barnes, he becomes an even better play. OG Anunoby 6'7". I like that play. Siakam at 9.8 as a pay-up option. Fred VanVleet at 9.7. Chris Paul, Devin Booker. All priced respectively, but the fact of the matter is the game's expected to stay close. If there was ever time for them to have a bunch of upside, this would be it. And their rotations are very, very solid. Some of these other teams we're starting to see, the Thunder and the Grizzlies, starting to spread their minutes thin in the second rotation and stuff. I don't want to be targeting those teams. I'd much rather be targeting the teams that are really giving their starters some solidified minutes. So that would be my approach there. And that is my overall breakdown, guys. Before I let you guys go, I got to give you my lock of the night. Let's get into it. And my lock of the night tonight is going to be Brandon Ingram. Taking on this Minnesota team in a high up-tempo game, has seen his price tag fall across the industry, and I think he is too cheap for his upside tonight. Projected to play in the mid-30s in minutes as far as FanDuel, priced at $8K. DraftKings, priced at $8.2, putting up 1.13 DK points per minute on the season. FanDuel, 1.08 FanDuel points per minute in a 226.5 over-under. Phenomenal spot for him to really have a high upside game here, and where he's priced, love the upside. Get him in your lineups because he is my lock of the night. So there you have it, guys. Brandon Ingram, get him in your lineups. And that is all from me in this one. If you did enjoy the content, if you could please take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. And if you want to check out the sponsor of the program, would be greatly appreciated. Parlay Play down below. Click that link. Use the promo code KJK003 to get an instant match deposit up to $50. An instantaneous free $10 to play with. And if you're getting serious about NBA DFS, go ahead and check out the KJK DFS NBA premium content packages. I did just release a video on the channel called How to Win an NBA DFS using KJK DFS premium content tool. So if you want to get a little bit more of a sneak peek of what I have to offer and what the sheets look like, all that stuff behind the paywall, you can check that out. Some old data, so it's not updated data on the screen, but it's a nice little demo of what is provided with the package. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight. Hopefully you join in for the live stream later on. If you don't, we will see you in the next one.